Alright, very good morning. Uh, Today we will start our first lecture on the SSCC 1203 on the introduction to analytical chemistry. So I divide this into a few parts, then later we try to look into it properly lah. Okay, alright. So my name is Dr. Muhammad Afiq bin Muhammad Huri. Okay, actually this particular site prepared by the Dr. Amy Shazwani Abdul. Okay, alright. So I'm giving the credit to Dr. Amy Shazwani. Let's go for the first slide for this particular topics. Okay, for the introduction. Here are the things that you will learn. So, okay, and we put here as the chapter learning outcomes. Okay, so the first one, to explain the role of analytical chemistry and differentiate between qualitative and quantitative analysis. So the first learning outcomes, you need to explain the role of analytical chemistry. So not only to state the role, but to explain. When we talk about explain, you need to go into detail why you need to understand those. You need to understand how it works. Okay, so it's not just state or list. Okay, when we talk about explains, it's require higher level thinking. Okay, higher level of thinking. Okay, so you need to explain the role of analytical chemistry and differentiate between qualitative and quantitative analysis. Okay, so you need to also to differentiate between qualitative and quantitative analysis. Okay, this quite bit general. Okay, when we talk about differentiate, okay, not only, for example, like the advantages or disadvantages, what these particular things are supposed to do, or what this thing is supposed to do, but you need to go until it's reaching in term of higher level of thinking. Like say for example, the application. Okay, when in the situation that require only the qualitative analysis, when in the situation, okay, we should apply the quantitative analysis. Okay, maybe we need to go a little bit higher, we can go in a little bit higher. Should you to go for the qualitative analysis, or just enough for you for qualitative only, no need for go for quantitative analysis. Okay, so you need to think something like that lah. Okay, right. So then we will learn about the describe the basic analytical methodology. Okay, the verb here is very basic, describe. Okay, simple things. You need to describe the basic analytical methodology, like for example, the sample of sample collection. Okay, let's say for example, for sample collection, okay, how you are deciding the factors. Okay, what methods you would like to apply. Okay, let's say for example, starting for sample prep. Okay, sample methodology. Let's say for example, sample digestion method, sample collection method. Okay, the procedure, and until sample analytical, and also what kind of analysis that you would like to choose. Okay, so when we talk about basic analytical methodology, is basically starting from the problem statement until you produce the results. Okay, all of those needs to have the right methodology lah. Okay, let's say for example, if you want to start with the problem statement, you need to identify the problem. Okay, if you don't identify the problem, then you not be able to reach the end of the analysis. Okay, then after you have identified the right of the, let's say for example, problem statement, then you would need to go for literature comparison and so on. Okay, you need to go into detail how you are able to do the sample preparation correctly, sample collection properly, sample analysis properly, and what kind of the analysis that you should perform. Okay, so that is the what we call the basic of analytical methodology. Right, so then we should learn as well. Okay, express concentration using common units, perform simple calculation for solution preparation and dilution. Okay, so in chemistry, okay, you guys, okay, if you enroll in this particular course, probably you are in the what we call in the chemistry background. So we have different kind of the concentration expression. Okay, we can express in the term of, let's say for example, mole per liter, part per million, molarity. gram per liter, weight per weight, volume per volume, percentage, normality, and so on. So you need to understand, let's say for example from 1 units you want to convert to other units. Okay, later we will learn about that. And then you need to perform a correct sample calculation, and of course in the world of analytical chemistry you need to prepare a lots of concentration. Okay, so you need to understand how to calculate the concentration correctly, convert them correctly, and of course you want to prepare them accordingly. Let's say for example you have the higher concentration, you want to prepare to a what we call dilute solution, so you need to prepare them correctly. If I'm not mistaken, one of the case, I think in United States, when one of their spacecraft, what we call not be able to go into space, they are exploded because of the wrong units, okay, of usage. So that's why if you are not what we call use the right unit, okay, expression concentration, it will somehow, okay, make your results of what we call experiment or project or research, whatever you want to perform, being wrong lah. Okay, and the next one is to discuss the criteria for the selection of method. Describe the basic sampling for solid, liquid, and gas. Okay, you need to understand sample, they can come in the different type of form. Okay, sometimes it is in the form of solid, sometimes it's the form in liquid, and sometimes it's the form of gas. Okay, sometimes there can be mix of both. Let's say for example slurry, okay, solid plus liquid. Okay, not only that thing that you need to pay attention, you need to understand, okay, by the nature of your sample. Let's say if it's organic, okay, it might have different approach, okay, compared to the inorganic sample. Okay, alright, of course solid, liquid, and gas, we have different kind of approach. Okay, same goes if let's say for example for inorganic, okay, or organic, what kind of the sample preparation, sample collection method or sample preservation that you should approach. Okay, right. Right, so now let's go to the first slide. Okay, what is analytical chemistry and how it plays a role? Okay, what is analytical chemistry and how it plays a role lah? Okay, right. Okay, so you don't need to memorize, okay, exactly the way it is, as long I understand, okay, the key element that you would like to explain, I should be able to accept it. Okay, let's say if the question being asked in the quiz or in the test or final, okay, let's say for example define analytical chemistry. Let's say for example, okay, the analytical chemistry define deal with the separation, identification, and determination of analyte. Let's say for example, okay, alright, so you can choose, let's say for example similar words. Let's say for example you would like to separate them, you want to determine them individually, you want to quantitate them. Let's say for example, you should be able to accept them as one of the answer lah. Okay, right, so analytical chemistry is to obtain, process, and communicate information about the composition and structure of the analyte in the sample. So you need to understand in the analytical chemistry, not only you need to do the analysis in the lab, but you need to understand that either the sample has been obtained correctly or not. Okay, is the sample has been processed correctly or not. Okay, from sample preparation until analytical approach, and then you need to communicate the results. Okay, later you will be as a chemist, you work as a chemist in the futures, you need to produce the right report. Okay, you need to produce the right report, okay, for your consumer, okay, for your customer. Let's say for example your customer is from in the industry, okay, so they want to know either your, let's say for example your sample, their sample is what we call adhere the, let's say for example whatever X they threw at them. Okay, so they need to know about that, so you need to communicate the information, you need to produce the results, okay, properly, correctly, accurately, and the most important thing, with the integrity. Okay, all right. So you need to make sure, okay, they are done correctly about the composition and the structure of analyte in the sample. So you obtain, you process, you communicate them. Right, so in other words, the art of science that mean the matter is how much exists. Okay, this is about the qualitative and quantitative analysis. The simple words you want to determine, okay, what is it, and then you want to know, sometimes you want to know how much is it. Okay, in certain situation, okay, it's not necessary for you to determine how much it is. Okay, sometimes let's say for example in certain situation, okay, for toxins, let's say for example very dangerous toxins, okay, they just the law, okay, as long it's presence in the food, let's say for example the food should be banned. Okay, right, sometimes, okay, let's say for example in mussels, kerang lah, mussels, right, in the cockles, okay, in the cockles, let's say for plumbum, okay, the plumbum, it is okay for you, let's say for example to to have about less than 0.1 ppm, let's say for example, yeah, I don't know exactly the what we call the value, I can't remember, but under Food Nation Act they have certain regulatory you need to adhere. Okay, so in Singapore as well, for prawn, you cannot export to them if let's say for example they have chloramphenicol inside any concentration. Okay, in any concentration. Okay, so let's say for example in the prawn, you they are able to detect at 0.0001 ppm of chloramphenicol. So because of that, you cannot export them. Okay, that is one of the example. Okay, sometimes only qualitative analysis, okay, is required. Okay, let's say I give you a forensic example. Okay, they want to know the concentration of the drugs and the purity of the drugs. Okay, if let's say for example your concentration of drugs exceed for that certain limits, okay, you will get a death, okay, penalty. If the concentration is lower than that, you will get a lighter punishment lah. Okay, that is the example. Okay, why sometimes, okay, they only lose into the qualitative, not into quantitative. Okay, but sometimes, okay, quantitative is a must. Okay, let's say for example in the Panadol, okay, I think a lot of you have consumed, have used, okay, paracetamol before. Okay, so in the industry you need to adhere that, okay, the error must be within 5% the value. Okay, let's say for example you buy 500 milligram of paracetamol or acetaminophen, so you need to adhere about 5%. Okay, if you as the industry, you need to produce the tablets that with the error plus minus 5%. Okay, so when that happen, 5%, let's say for example about I don't, let me try to calculate exactly, 5% multiple by 500 milligram, about 25 milligram of error only. So your results should be reached in between. Okay, not your results, the paracetamol produced by the company should be within the range of 475 milligram or 525 milligram of acetaminophen. More than that, okay, alright, so it means that something wrong with the production, so that you need to stop them, you need to correct them, and then only you can produce them again lah. You cannot release, okay, to the what we call to the market. Let's say for example, okay, why is important, okay, to what we call to adhere, okay, to follow the rules. Let's say for example, if let's say lower than 475, then the dose is little bit lower, so you cannot the consumer, if consume the what we call taking the paracetamol, they cannot become healthy efficiently lah. Or if what we call they consume, okay, if the let's say the dosage is little bit high, it can become harmful to them. Okay, that's why it's really important for us, okay, to understand, okay, why sometimes we require to go into the qualitative and also quantitative as well. Okay, most of the time if you do for the quantitative, of course automatically you need to do for the qualitative. I'm not sure, probably you have the idea, but so far in my life I have never heard about, okay, you need to only to do a quantitative but you don't need to go for qualitative. I have never heard about that. Any example, Okay, if let's say for example you are able to determine that, okay, you can give me one straight example, okay, come to me, I will give you some kind of what we call honorarium lah. Okay, alright. So let's go for the area of analytical chemistry. Okay, we have a number of area of analytical chemistry. Okay, the under environmental analysis, of course, is quite close to us. If you live in Johor past few years back, okay, it's quite famous about Sungai Kim Kim pollution and so on, Pasir Gudang, in area of Pasir Gudang, Johor. Okay, so we are really worried about the what we call the pollution, okay, because it can harm what we call the people at the surrounding. Okay, if you still remember, I think few school students they are poisons because of the air pollution. Okay, alright. So in the environmental analysis, okay, it's required really meticulous analysis. In Malaysia, we have Jabatan Kimia Malaysia. We have what we call Jabatan Air Negeri. Let's say, for example, in Johor, we have the Syarikat Air Johor under SAJ and Radil, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe other negeri they have their own syarikat air and so on, okay, to monitor the quality of the water. If I'm not mistaken, last year as well, because of high content of ammonia, so they need to stop the what we call the distribution of the water. They need to adjust the filtration process, okay, the treatment process, so they can remove the ammonia in the water. Because why? If we consume them, okay, it might harmful to us. Okay, alright. Clinical analysis, okay, this is quite important as well. Okay, let's say for example you are drinking alcohol, okay, you are driving under the influence, okay, DUI, driving under influence, okay, so accidentally you hit somebody else, okay, maybe it's not your wrong, okay, maybe that is the pedestrian fault, okay, mistake, okay, so they need to check your blood alcohol content, either it exceeds the limits or under the limits that allowed by law. Okay, that is for example of clinical analysis. Or let's say for example clinical analysis, medical checkup, okay, let's say for example they would like to know either your kidney is okay or not. Let's say you can ask your father or mother lah, especially if they are quite old. Maybe if you have your grandparents, you can ask them, okay, normally if they are old, they go to the clinic or hospital, they need to complete the clinical analysis. Okay, sometimes clinical analysis is required to assess either their body is healthy or not. Let's say for example their sugar level in their blood, sugar, their what we call the what we call the uric acid in their what we call the urine, okay, in their blood, okay, for let's say for example for gout and so on lah. So there are a number of things in the application of the clinical analysis, really important, okay, for analytical chemistry as well. Okay, for pharmaceutical analysis, okay, of course the properties, toxicity, metabolites and quality control, as I mentioned before about the acetaminophen or paracetamol, they need to do this particular analysis, okay, frequently to ensure that their quality, okay, of the production is under the limit, okay, or adhere the limits that's allowed lah, okay, under the area lah, we can say. Alright. And forensic analysis, okay, blood alcohol analysis, let's say for example, it's also required as well, okay, DNA, fingerprint analysis, okay, there are a lot of things, okay, they require forensic analysis. My background is more on the analytical chemistry of forensic as well. I have my PhD did on chemistry forensics, okay, so you can find my paper later lah, okay, in related field. Okay, so we perform the analysis using selected analytical instrumentation, okay, then we what we call develop the method for forensic analysis. Industrial quality control, not only for pharmaceutical, a lot of other what we call industry require quality control, okay, by requiring analytical chemistry. Let's say for example you are producing, okay, some kind of food, okay, let's say for example you like to we have received, okay, I give you direct example lah, okay, we receive you direct example, okay, there are one factory producing what we call kotak box, okay, the box box, kita panggil apa ya, box yang for postage, box kertas tu, okay, yang warna coklat tu, the chocolate box, not chocolate, the color lah, the brown box, okay, for postage and so on. Okay, that particular box, some of their customer complain that they, what we call, smell unpleasant smell lah from the box. So they want to know what kind of, what we call, chemical that cause that, what we call, bad odor. So they ask us, me and Dr. Amy lah, one of them, to assess, okay, what we call, what kind of the chemical that actually produce the bad odor lah. Okay, so they don't want the harmful odor to be present. Let's say for example, the VOCs, volatile organic compound is quite harmful. Let's say for example, benzene, toluene or ethyl benzene is not allowed, okay, as the, what we call, the remnants. Okay, if it's allowed, it must be what we call under the limit. Okay, bioanalytical chemistry analysis, okay, DNA, protein, enzyme base and so on. So a lot of numbers under area of analytical chemistry. Alright, let's look for the few examples. Okay, here is petani Cameron Highlands guna racun perosak haram. Okay, they use banned poisons. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, DDT or DDE is no longer allowed. Itu yang antara contoh. I don't, mungkin ini yang racun yang diorang refer tu lah, the DDT and DDE or DDE, I can't remember. Okay, alright, so this is one of the example case in Malaysia where we needed the analytical chemist, okay, to assess what we call the quality and so on. Okay, here is the case in Kim Kim River, quite famous as well, so you can look into this. Okay, this is quite famous as well, maybe not for a man like me, maybe for a girls, okay, among you. Okay, you need to understand that sometimes in what we call the cosmetic product, they have what we call a bleaching agent. Okay, one of the not a good one bleaching agent, let's say for example mercury. Okay, that makes your skin become glow and whitening lah. Okay, but in the long term, if you use them, it can make your kidney failure lah, because they have metal, can be absorbed by your body, and then it can make your what we call liver to be what we call fail, then your kidney. Okay, right, so it's really harmful. That's why I advise, especially for you girls, okay, don't go into the what we call pasar malam, night market, and buy what we call unnecessarily, what we call suspiciously or unlabeled, not knowing what we call whatever kind of cosmetic product. Okay, never go to the night market. The best thing, the best way ever method to buy the cosmetic product, you go to the directly to the market. Okay, the legal one lah. Let's say for example the Causeway, let's say for example Guardian and so on lah. You can buy over there, but not in the night market. Shopee, if it's an official store, then it's okay lah. If it's not an official store, okay, forget about it. Okay, I advise not you to not buy from not legal registered market. Okay, what else? Okay, here is the drugs. Okay, they want to know what kind of drug, okay, what is the purity of it, why is it really important for us to understand the what kind of the drug and purity of it, and how, what we call, the composition of it, because certain most of the drugs are prepared in the clandestine lab. Clandestine lab is what we call the unregistered lab. Okay, normally they use certain material, okay, differ from the other type of lab lah. Okay, so different clandestine lab, different person, they have different recipe. We can say, okay, like you lah, of course, if you eat nasi lemak at, let's say nasi lemak wak kentut, dia taste different. Let's say for example, if you taste nasi lemak at Rembayung lah, okay, okay, they have their own recipe. Same goes with dadah lah, same goes with drugs, they have different ingredients. So by knowing the composition, okay, you might be able to trace back. Okay, you might be able. So I stress over here, okay, I highlight over here the word of might lah, because sometimes, okay, they share the same ingredients, okay, across the lab. Okay, but you might be able to trace back, okay, to the what we call the labs that actually produce this particular tinggi lah, the drugs. Okay, so this is quite membimbangkan lah, worried to us, because the amount is 201.8 million. Okay, can you imagine how much is it? Okay, can you imagine how much is it? Even this particular what we call a bag of drugs over here, if you look over here, for one person, no, I don't think one person can consume this in his entire life. I think it's require about 5 to 10% for each bag lah, if they consume daily in what we call in their entire life. Because why? If you want to consume the drugs, you only require about what, just a few milligram of them, okay, per consumption. So if you only want consume this one, it cannot lah, you cannot finish it, what we call in your entire life, and unless you eat them, and then of course you will what we call that because of the overdose lah. Why I say it's quite worry, because it's produced in Malaysia. Okay, right now we have a lot of clandestine lab in Malaysia. Okay, that is the issue. Okay, Malaysia, okay, has the potential to become what? To become a producing country for drugs. Okay, we buy the raw material from somebody else, and then we produce the drug, because nowadays it's not necessary for us to grow weeds, okay, surrounding us. They can come in the form of raw material A, raw material B, raw material C, okay, then you can cook them lah, you can cook them separately. So this is quite worrisome. Okay, why? Because the next generation, okay, not maybe not you, your next generation, your children, your grandchildren, and so on, might get what we call affected to this lah. Okay, we don't want to have our country to be like Mexico. Even United States is quite worrisome about the drugs consumption as well. So it's really harmful. So hopefully we are not we are able to what we call cope this particular case lah. Okay, right, so here a concise compilation of quantitative analytical chemistry. Okay, so you can contact Dr. Amy. Okay, at the front I think I provide you with the email of Dr. Amy. If not, you can come to me, or maybe you can contact me. I can ask her to provide you. So this particular book is quite good. Okay, basic of what we call analytical method inside them. Okay, quite cover lah very well. Okay, so you can buy them. I have one as well for me. Okay, maybe you can buy them. Okay, it's not, I don't want to recommend you for photocopy, because it's not good. It's illegal actually to do a photocopy. But maybe you can share with your friend lah. Okay, together 2 or 3 of you buy a book, that you can share them together lah. Okay, as a reference book to you. But it's not compulsory. I just want to promote this. Okay, it's produced by Prof. Muhammad Marsin. Okay, Prof. Wan Azli, Prof. Wan Aini, all 3 of them already retired, and their legacy is continued by Dr. Amy Shaswani Abdul, Associate Professor. Okay. Right. So the type of analysis, okay, the analogy, you can go for the quantitative or qualitative analysis. Okay, I already described to you a quite lengthy one in the early of the lecture about the quantitative and qualitative analysis. Okay, qualitative analysis, quality. Okay, we would like to know what kind of analyte present, what is present inside that. Let's say for example, what we call the river is blue. What caused the color blue? So you want to know what is causing the color blue. What kind of dye, let's say for example, what kind of metal, or maybe it's copper contamination, or it's coming for some kind of organic dye. So you want to know what is inside that. Okay, so quantitative analysis, you want to know how much. Let's say for example, is it harmful? Okay, you want to know, or maybe let's say for example, you suspect of copper. Okay, so you want to know, is it the copper contamination reaching the what we call the limits that allow in the river water. Okay, alright, so maybe by answering them, you can ask the further question lah, where it's coming from. Okay, then that is the other part of the story lah. So you need to connect the dot, okay, put the statistical work and then combine with the police work, okay, the scene investigation and so on. Then you can connect the dot and link with the perpetrator, let's say for example lah. Okay, right. Now we go for what is analyte, matrix and sample. What is analyte? Analyte is the target, okay, the element or the matter, the things that you want to determine, okay, the specific things inside that particular sample that you would like to determine that have taken your interest, okay, right. Other than analyte of your interest, we call them as the matrix. Okay, how about sample? Sample is basically the mixture of analytes and the matrix. If I'm saying the analyte is the things that you have interest to, let's say for example, I give you just a joke lah. Okay, just a joke. Okay, alright, just a joke. Okay, let's say for example, you love that particular girl because of her appearance. Let's say for example, the beautifulness, okay, the beautifulness, okay, maybe more specific lah, I go to specific, maybe you love her because of the her tudung. Let's say for example, you love that particular girl because of her tudung. Her tudung is so nice, okay, right. So that tudung is your analyte of interest, okay, but there are other things, okay, then her tudung, okay, let's say for example her dress, okay, her, okay, for example her makeup, okay, that is your sample matrix, okay. Other than the tudung, okay, is the sample matrix. You combine them together, become a sample, okay, right. So but sample is not as simple as that, okay. Sample, okay, is a representative of the population or gross sample, okay. When we talk about sample, it's very important in your analysis as well, because if you are taking the wrong sample, then you do not get a correct data lah. Okay, you don't get a correct data. Okay, sample must be representative of the population or gross sample. Okay, let's say for example, you would like to determine, okay, copper contamination of heavy metals in the cockles. Okay, you want to know, but you only collect in Skudai. But you want to know the contamination across Johor. Can you report that contamination in Skudai, but you report that, oh, that is the contamination for the whole Johor? No, you can't, unless in your report you say specifically that is only for Skudai. Okay, let's say even that, okay, if you want to make sure it's representative, let's say for example in Skudai, so you can you only collect the sample of cockles, okay, from the Taman Yu market? Okay, you cannot. Okay, so you need to obtain, let's say for example in the Taman Yu market itself, you obtain the sample from different buyers. You collect from different buyers. You collect from different sellers. Then you collect from different, okay, area in the area of Skudai. Let's say you have the market in the Taman Yu. You also have the market, let's say for example, where else we have the market? I can't remember. Maybe the Pasar Hari. Let's say for example Pasar Hari, we have Pasar Hari Jumaat, let's say for example in Taman Yu as well. So you collect on at different place. Okay, alright. So that's make your sample become more representative. Okay, let's say for example I give you situation lah. You would like to know the air contamination in UTM, but you only measure in the Faculty of Science, so it's not correct. So you need to obtain, let's say for example from the Fakulti Kejuruteraan Tenaga. You need to go for geoinformasi, maybe go for, let's say for example Akademi Bahasa. So then only the sample become more representative. Okay, okay, maybe I give you more detail. So let's say for example, can you make the sample representative, okay, for the whole day pollution? Okay, if you only collect only on the morning, okay, no, you cannot. So maybe you need to collect at the afternoon. Maybe you need to collect at the evening. Okay, can the one day become what we call representative for the entire month? You cannot. So you need to collect at the different duration. Okay, maybe like every weeks. Okay, Alright, few intervals, let's say for every 4 days intervals you collect one sample. Okay, Monday evening, afternoon. Okay, so that is the thing how you can make your sample become more representative. Okay, right, that is the situation. Okay, when the situation is that you want to have the sample, okay, to be that particular broad lah. Okay, sometimes the sample must be taken specifically towards that particular individual. Okay, let's say for example in the case of forensics, okay, there are house robbery. Okay, the door of the house has been broken, okay, by, let's say for example, hammer. There are paint transfer, so you analyze a bit of paint from the victim house, then you found the hammer at the suspect house, you collect the paint over there, then you analyze. Okay, sometimes not necessarily that the sample must be representative of the whole big population lah. Okay, sometimes it can be specific to that particular individual. Okay, depends on the situation lah. So here one of the situation, right? Okay, in this particular situation, imagine you are a chemical engineer working for a coal power plant in Kapar, Selangor lah. So you suspect that the coal is different as the previous batch. Okay, like, okay, imagine chemical working in coal fire plant in Selangor, they bought medium quality coal from Indonesia. Okay, today when the ship arrive, you suspect the coal from, okay, right. So you are chemical engineer at the Kapar, Selangor. So you buy a medium quality coal from Indonesia. Okay, just what we call in the interval lah. You receive twice a month lah. You bought the what we call the coal from the Indonesia, but you suspect, okay, the next batch you receive coming from the different batch. So what kind of analysis that you should analyze? Okay, what kind of sample you should collect? What is the expected analyte? What is the metric? Should this be qualitative or quantitative analysis? So this one, okay, I give you this as the homework. Okay, I give this as the homework. Okay, I will provide you with the results that I will produce myself. Okay, in the e-learning as well. Okay, but you need to submit the homework first before you can receive my analysis as well lah from my own side. Okay, I don't want to discuss here. If I discuss here alone, then you don't think a lot lah. So I want you to think as well. Alright. So now let's go for the steps in chemical analysis. Just now I've made correction in the title. Okay. These steps in chemical analysis can cover both the qualitative and quantitative analysis. Okay, might have some difference only, especially let's say for example in the step 7, but I think the rest is quite similar. Okay, the first one, okay, of course, it's like you are doing your research. Okay, it's like when you encounter a problem, so you need to understand and define the problem. Okay, so you need to understand what kind of problem that you would like to counter, you would like to solve. Okay, let's say for example, I give you an issue. Let's say for example, in the Kim Kim River. So you would like to know, the Kim Kim River is polluted. We smell something. Okay, we smell something. So you need to understand what kind of problem. Oh, the river is polluted. Okay, it has some smell, so you need to try to what we call make an hypothesis. Let's say for example, what is actually causing the smell, how we can analyze them. Okay, so we need to try to go into detail a bit. Okay, where is, let's say for example, the possibility the pollution is coming from? Is it coming naturally? Is it coming, let's say for example, from the farming? Or is it coming from the industry? So is it coming from the, let's say for example, wastewater production? Okay, so you need to try to understand the problem, try to narrow down a bit the problem, okay, to what we call a group of questions that you need to ask. In forensics, we need to list down the hypotheses and then we need to test them. Let's say, for example, in the Kim River, it might be caused by the natural causes. So you need to find, is it coming from natural causes? Is there any, let's say, for example, hot water that can cause sulfur pollution to the water? No, then you can reject that particular hypothesis. We call them as the, I can remember what we call them. Let me think about a minute. Okay, we have the deduction and induction lah. Okay, okay, hypothesis, deduction. So you test one by one the hypothesis. Okay, there you go. Let's say, for example, it might come from the, let's say, farming. Okay, maybe they have some chicken coop nearby. Okay, so you investigate, is there any chicken coop reban ayam ada ke that can cause that particular pollution? Then there is none. Then they narrow down with, they focus on what is actually can cause, okay, to the river. Okay, so when they look at it, it's nearby to the industry. Okay, all right, and then also there are some sign of somebody threw some of chemical, okay, to the Kim River. So they narrow down to that two particular possibility. So you need to understand and define the problem very well so you can go into a very good process later. If not, it's become little bit too general, make your life harder. You don't understand the problem, and at the end you are not be able to produce a good report. You are not be able to get a good outcome. After you have understand the problem, it's narrowed down a bit, your hypothesis only left you with just a solid one, not uncertain one. Then the literature search would assist you on the next problem. Okay, so when we talk about the literature search, okay, not just a simple Google, but a Google one or ChatGPT one. When we talk about the literature search, okay, it must be based on the solid literature. Okay, it's not just based on the hearsay and so on. Okay, so literature search, okay, if you do it correctly, it can help you with a lot of other things. Let's say, for example, okay, you would like to know, based on the literature search, what are the possibility of area of interest. Let's say, for example, for industrial waste. Okay, so let's say, for example, wastewater discharge from industry. Let's say, for example, you go nearby is the textile. Okay, so you investigate in the textile industry what kind of waste they are discharged. Okay, so you can narrow down. That's why literature search is what we call must be done correctly. Then you go for the standard methods. What is the standard method? Standard methods is the method that has been proven working very well across the labs in, maybe not Malaysia, but across regions. When we talk about across regions, sometimes, okay, good, in the Europe, let's say for France, in the British, in the American, they test in a few laboratories. Okay, so the methods been proven working. Let's say, for example, based on the textile, blah blah blah, you suspected volatile organic compounds. So based on the researchers, based on the standard method, let's say, for example, ASTM, okay, this is the method suggested. Okay, alright, maybe the standard method what we call has been suggested not suitable to you because you might not have certain equipment or you want to have certain modification. Then you can go for the published method, but of course the standard method is the best one. Then you can go for the published method. What is mean by published method? Published methods is the method produced in the journals. Okay, in the journals they have rankings that you need to prioritize. Okay, of course you need to go, let's say, for example, the first one after standard method, you should go for the what we call the index journal. The index journal started with the WOS journal Q1, Q2 until Q4. then you can go for, let's say for example, if you don't have them, then you can go for the Scopus index, but you never go for, let's say for example, non-index journal, because it will not help you as much. Because why? Normally published methods, they are reviewed by the what we call very talented person lah. Okay, alright. If you want to be a reviewer for a Q1, okay, they need to check your background. Oh, you have very good background. Okay, you have produced a lot of research. Then only you can review that particular journal before it can be accepted in the Q1 journal. Let's say for example, that's why the quality become higher lah over there. Okay, that's why. Okay, you can look at the method. Okay, based on the literature research, okay, you understand. Okay, this is for the targeted analyte. You understand. Oh, this is how you're supposed to collect them. Oh, this is how you're supposed to preserve them. Oh, this is how you're supposed to prepare them. Oh, this is how you're supposed to analyze them. Oh, this is how supposed you say for example, you modify them. Okay, alright. So based on the research, you can choose your select method you want to use, the sample preservation, sample preparation, and of course you done the analysis. Okay, so the literature search, okay, help you a lot with the step 3, okay, step 4, step 5, and step 6. So after you have select analytical method, whatever it is, you perform the sampling process. The sampling, as I mentioned earlier, the sampling must be representative. Okay, it must be representative. Let's say for example, for the Kim river, you need to collect, let's say for example, in the top, in the middle, at the bottom of the river, at let's say for example, at the end of the river and the beginning of the river, hulu and hile of the river lah. I can't remember exactly the name in English. Or and also you can perform, oh, I would like to perform in the morning, afternoon, and evening. Or maybe you would like to perform for the entire month, let's say for example, intervally. Okay, let's say for example, for every 3 days you collect the sample in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and so on. Okay, alright. So then you go for the preservation. How you can preserve them very well? Let's say for example, you put them in the cold storage. Let's say for example, for heavy metal, you add certain acids you don't want for them for precipitate. Or let's say for example, for organics compound, then you put in the airtight amber glass, so you don't want to have them to have a UV degradation. Okay, then after you have completed for the step 4, you go for step 5. Step 5, you go for the sample prep. Why you need to go for the sample prep? Okay, because you want to make the sample become suitable, okay, suitable substance that really need to be analyzed. Okay, alright. Let's say for example, the sample you collect is too huge. Okay, maybe it's too diluted, so you need to go for the sample prep that can concentrate your sample. Or maybe your sample is in solid form, but your instrument can only taking liquid, okay, before they can analyze the substance. So you need to do a sample preparation correctly. For the sample preparation, of course, okay, it's differ. Okay, the analytical method, sample preservation, sample preparation, and method different between different type of the sample. Let's say for example, solid, liquid, or gas. So the idea is organic or inorganic. Okay, even the different type of inorganic, they have different type of preparation. Okay, even different type of organic, so you need to have different type of preparation. Let's say for example, your organic compound is polar. Okay, so it's different compared to if you want to extract the non-polar one. Okay, let's say for example, for the inorganic analyte, okay, the one let's say for example, for plumbum, okay, it's really different if you want to compare. Let's say for example, for the one that is transition metal element, which is harder to prepare and so on. Okay, or maybe mercury. Okay, it's require different type of approach of sample extraction and so on. Okay, after you have choose correctly, then only you can do analysis. So you need to analysis correctly. Either you want to go until qualitative or quantitative. I think I have described before, so you just go to back again. Then after you have performed the analysis, you apply required statistical techniques and verify the results. Okay, when I say you apply statistical techniques, okay, it can cover both qualitative and quantitative. When we talk about qualitative analysis, okay, based on statistical, you can investigate at, let's say for example for organic, at which time it's appear, okay, at which time it's appear, or if let's say for example you run for UVVs, or if at which absorbance is appear. Okay, that is can go for the qualitative analysis. If for the quantitative analysis, then you need to apply lah the limit of detection, calibration curve, reproducibility, whatever so on. So you can report your results accurately lah. Then at the end you produce your report. Okay, we can produce the technical report. I also have produced several technical reports for our pusat perkhidmatan analisis. So you need to report them accordingly, and then you need to make sure that it's organized, so the the customer, when they receive the reports, they understand, okay, what kind of the results that you have been produced. Okay, it's not your job. Let's say for example, if you work on the separate lab, okay, the work of the chemical chemist is different. If you work as the chemical testing lab, okay, you produce the report and so on, and then you provide to the company, that then the company is the one that will decide what they can do with the results. But if you work as the chemist in, let's say for that particular company directly, so you need to decide what kind of adjustment that you can make. So let's say for example, your product falls into the allowable limits. Okay, let's say for example lah. Okay, alright. Okay, so here are the go for the step 1. So we have number of steps I already explained earlier. So right now we can just go through. So what is the problem needs to be investigated? Is qualitative or quantitative? When the result will be needed? Okay, depends. If it's a high profile cases like in Sungai Kim Kims, they require very fast results. Let's say for example in 2 weeks. Okay, if let's say just for the long term one, for quality control, normally about a month lah. Okay, alright. How many samples are to be analyzed? So you need to understand very well, so because you need to learn about the capacity that you need to cater around, and who will use the information and so on. Okay, so later you can produce the result and so on lah. Okay, alright. Again, how accurate and precise does it have to be? Okay, this is quite important as well. Why? Different type of the analysis, it can require different accurate and precise it is. Let's say for example you perform the environmental analysis. Okay, the accuracy can be 80%, 100% plus minus 20%, 80 to 120%. But when we talk about the pharmaceutical quality control, let's say for example for the vaccine, okay, it must be less than 5% error. Okay, right. How sensitive the method must be? Okay, I mentioned in the early example, for if you want to export for the chloramphenicol, you want to export for the brown, let's say for example just for Singapore, must be as sensitive as possible. Okay, because they not allow the, let's say for example, the chloramphenicol to be exist in the brown. Okay, let's say for example copper. Okay, so the sensitivity must reaching about 0.1 ppm. Let's say for example, so you need to go up to that particular sensitivity. Let's say it requires 0.1 ppm, so you cannot go up to 10 ppm. So it must be in that particular range. Let's say for example 0.01 ppm until 1 ppm, you cover that particular range. So what is the budget? Okay, so you need to understand the customer budget. Okay, if they say for example they have a smaller budget, so maybe if let's say for heavy metal, you just simply use the AAS. Okay, you don't use the, let's say for example, ICP or ES, which is really expensive. Okay, let's say for example they would like to analyze the VOC, so they don't have any budget or lack of budget, so you can just simply use, let's say for example, HPLC instead of GCMS or LCMSMS. Okay, alright. How the sample is obtained? Okay, why does it require preliminary treatment and so on? Okay, so this is the thing that you need to understand. Of course, in understanding and define problem, okay, so you understand a lot of other things. Okay, sorry. Okay. Let's say this is the particular thing. Okay, so the mercury and so on, we go back to this particular example, right? So you need to understand what kind of analyte. Let's say you suspect for mercury, so you read. You need to read. Oh, how much concentration of the mercury on what kind of the sample, what kind of brand. Let's say you go for natural plant brands. Okay, right? So you go focus on natural plant brands. So what kind of how it can be what we call destroy or damage. So maybe you preserve them in the cold storage, you put in the airtight container and so on. Okay, how to prepare them? Okay, maybe you use the, let's say for example, okay, you use the reduction process. Okay, so you can collect them and so on. So you apply that, then you do the analysis. What kind of the method that we can use? Can you use the ICP? No, it's not. Okay, for mercury is quite volatile, so you can use, let's say for example, HGAS, let's say for example. Okay, so you need to understand. Okay, let's say for example, here is require a qualitative or quantitative as well. So in this particular example, mercury, or you need to go for mercury analysis. You want to know either is exceeding the amount or not lah. Is it dangerous or not? So then only then you know how to do it lah. Okay, step 2, chemical researchers, search as I already mentioned. Okay, standard method. Okay, STM, for example, AOAC as example. I think you have learned this quite a lot, especially in the quality assurance. Oh, sorry, you are the first year. I'm sorry. Later you will learn about the quality assurance, but one of the important things in the chemical research. Okay, so you need to understand. Okay, about the STM, AOAC. Okay, in the STM, you need to pay lah before you can access the document. Okay, it's quite expensive as well. Okay, then you have the AOAC. Okay, the AOAC. Okay, one of the other kind produce the what we call the standard method. There are few others what we call different body to focus on the different type of the what we call standard method. At STM, normally they focus on the quality control of certain things lah. Okay, AOAC normally in the environmental one lah, but of course sometimes others they have, let's say for example EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, they have also something that involve the environment. So if you cannot find the STM, you can try to find in the AOAC or maybe other kind of the standard method. I think I still can remember a few: STM, AOAC, EPA, WHO. Okay, they have what we call their own structure organization to develop the what we call standard method lah. Okay, after standard method is the highest one. Then you can go for the published journals, as I mentioned. Okay, they can come in different ranks. If you obtain at the higher ranks is mean that it's much more trustworthy, so you can use that lah. Okay, if only the standard method is not available or you cannot adopt that because maybe the instrument is not available in your country and so on. Okay, step 3, you select analytical method. Okay, chemistry principle. Okay, let's say for example in organic analytes you need to use different chemistry approach. Organic analyte you need to have different organic approach. If they say for example non-volatile compound, you cannot use for the HPLC. For non-volatile compound you cannot use for gas chromatography because in gas chromatography analyte must be volatile. Let's say for example for mercury is quite volatile. You cannot simply use the AAS or ICP or ES, so you need to use correctly. Okay, alright. Other methods valid or certified. You need to determine the accuracy, how accurate should be, as I mentioned before, how sensitivity is, time and cost of number of analysis, complexity of the sample. Let's say for example if the sample is complex, so you need to understand how you can prepare them so it can become less complex and your analytical methods can run them, okay, with less interference and so on. Okay, technical expertise, speed can be automated, a lot of other things, a lot of other factors lah. Okay, in the select analytical method. In Jabatan Kimia Malaysia, not once during my internship before, I run for, let's say for example I ran my 50 samples for 2 weeks. Okay, I ran my 50 sample for 2 weeks continuously without a break. Okay, so 50 sample. Okay, let's say one sample require about 40 to 50 minutes. Okay, so you can imagine if I need to run them individually. Okay, so it's not be possible, so depends on the number of sample. We go for the automated instrument, then we can run them fortnight, okay, without a break lah. Okay, let's say for example, okay, I give you another homework over here. Let's say for example here is for the paraquat. Okay, so you go for into Google, find the STM and AOAC method, okay, related to the analytical chemistry, how to analyze them. Then go to the PSZ database and find journal article related to analytical chemistry. Okay, I will leave this as the homework as well. Later, okay, I will give you my answer as well lah. Okay, alright. Okay, so just stated them, okay, and then give the link lah. Give the link. I will put the homework in the what we call in the e-learning as well, so you can try to understand how you can do a literature search and so on. Right, I think that's all for the first part. Okay, so next week we will continue again in the second part. Right, thank you.